The night is not fully gone. A thin layer of darkness still rests over the land, soft and quiet, like a blanket that has not yet been lifted. Above, the sky holds a few fading stars, pale and distant. They seem to drift slowly away as the first light of morning begins to rise. Along the banks of the Nile, the world waits. The river moves in silence, wide and steady. Its surface reflects the dim light, turning it into a soft shimmer that shifts gently with each small ripple. There is no hurry in the water. There is no sharp sound. Only a calm, endless flow that has been the same for as long as anyone can remember. Near the edge of the river, clusters of mud brick homes rest close together. Their walls are smooth but imperfect, shaped by hands that worked slowly and carefully. The color of the homes blends into the land itself, warm, earthy, and quiet. Inside one of these homes, a child lies asleep. The room is simple. The floor is firm and cool beneath a woven mat. The air carries the faint scent of dry earth mixed with the memory of last night's fire. There are no decorations on the walls, no objects to distract the eye. Only space, still and calm. The child does not move much at first. Their breathing is slow. Even. Outside, something shifts. A soft footstep. Then another. Someone is already awake. A mother, perhaps, moving carefully so as not to disturb the quiet. She adjusts a clay jar. The faint sound of water being poured echoes gently in the small space. It is not loud. It does not break the calm. It becomes part of it. The child begins to wake. Not suddenly. Not all at once. Their eyes open slightly, then close again, then open once more. The light in the room is still dim, but it is changing. A pale glow slips through a small opening high in the wall, tracing a narrow line across the floor. Dust floats in that light. Tiny grains drift slowly, rising and falling without purpose, moving only with the soft currents of air. The child watches them for a moment. There is no need to rush. No clock to follow. Only the gentle understanding that the day has begun. They sit up. The woven mat shifts slightly beneath them. The linen cloth falls softly to their side. Their feet touch the ground, and they pause, feeling the cool surface beneath their skin. It is a familiar feeling. One that comes every morning. Nearby, the mother turns her head. She does not speak right away. Her expression is calm, steady. She has already begun her day, but she allows the child to wake at their own pace. The child stands. Their body is small, but strong in a quiet way. Their movements are simple and unforced. There is no stiffness, no rush. Just a slow beginning. They walk toward the doorway. Outside, the world is changing. The sky is no longer dark. It holds a soft shade of blue, touched gently with pale gold near the horizon. The sun has not yet risen fully, but its presence is already felt. The air is cool. It brushes lightly against the child's skin, carrying with it the scent of water, of soil, of distant plants growing along the river's edge. Other homes begin to stir. A figure steps outside from a nearby doorway. Then another. A child not much older walks along the narrow path, holding a small container. Their steps are quiet, careful, as if they too are still half inside a dream. No one speaks loudly. There is no need. The morning belongs to silence. The child takes a few steps forward, feeling the ground beneath their feet. The earth here is packed and smooth from many days of walking. It holds the memory of countless mornings just like this one. From somewhere nearby, a faint warmth rises into the air. Bread. Flat and simple, made from grain and water, shaped by hand. The smell drifts slowly, wrapping itself around the quiet space between homes. The child notices. They always do. They turn slightly, following the scent without thinking. Near the entrance of their home, a small piece is waiting. It has already been prepared, already warmed. They pick it up. It feels soft, still holding a trace of heat. For a moment, they simply hold it. Then they take a bite. The taste is plain, but comforting. It fills the mouth slowly, asking nothing more than quiet attention. There are no strong flavors, no sudden changes. Just steady nourishment. They chew. And listen. The Nile continues its low, endless movement in the distance. A bird calls once, then again, its voice clear but gentle. Somewhere farther away, a faint splash touches the water's surface, then fades. The child finishes eating. They brush the crumbs from their hands. The day is ready now. Not with urgency. Not with demand. But with quiet expectation. They look out toward the river. Toward the wide stretch of land that will shape everything they do today. There are things to learn. Small things. Simple things. Things that will repeat again and again, until they become part of who they are. The child takes another step forward. Then another. And without noticing the moment it truly begins, they enter the slow rhythm of the day. The path beneath the child's feet feels familiar. It is not a road in the way we might imagine, but a narrow stretch of packed earth, shaped over time by many footsteps. It curves gently between the homes, never perfectly straight, never planned, but always known. The child walks along it slowly. There is no destination that demands speed. Only a direction shaped by habit, by quiet understanding. The morning light grows a little stronger now. The pale gold along the horizon begins to spread upward, touching the tops of the mud brick walls, warming their surface. The shadows soften. The air, still cool, begins its slow change toward the heat that will come later. Nearby, another child joins the path. They do not greet each other with loud voices or excitement. Instead, there is a brief glance. A small nod. A shared awareness that they are both part of the same morning. They begin to walk together. Not side by side at first, but close enough that their steps fall into a similar rhythm. The quiet between them is not empty. It is comfortable, like something they have known for a long time. Ahead, the river becomes more visible. The Nile stretches wide and calm, its surface now reflecting the growing light. Thin reeds line the edges, bending slightly in the soft movement of air. The water carries a scent that is clean but earthy, a reminder of the life it brings to everything around it. A few figures are already near the water. Adults, mostly. They move with steady purpose, though never in haste. One kneels to fill a clay jar, lowering it carefully into the river. Another stands nearby, watching the current, perhaps thinking, perhaps simply being still. The children slow their steps as they approach. This is a place they know well. A place where many parts of the day begin. The child kneels at the edge, just close enough for their fingers to reach the surface. They pause before touching it, watching how the light dances across the gentle ripples. Then, slowly, they dip their hand in. The water is cool. Cooler than the air. It moves softly around their fingers, slipping between them without resistance. The child lifts their hand again, watching droplets fall back into the river one by one. There is something calming in the repetition. Touch. Lift. Watch. Beside them, the other child does the same. No words are exchanged. They do not need to be. After a moment, one of the adults nearby turns slightly. A quiet signal, barely noticeable, but understood. It is time to help. The child stands. A small clay container is handed to them. It is not heavy, but it must be carried with care. The surface is smooth, shaped by hands long before this moment, baked by heat into something strong and lasting. The child holds it close. They step forward again, lowering it gently into the water, just as they have seen done many times before. The river fills it slowly, with a soft, hollow sound. When it is full, they lift it. The weight is noticeable now. Not too much. Just enough to require attention. They turn carefully, making their way back toward the path. Each step is measured, steady. The water inside the container shifts slightly with movement, creating a quiet rhythm of its own. The other child follows. Together, they carry what the morning has given. Back along the same path. Past the same homes. The light is brighter now. The sky has opened into a clear, soft blue. The sun, though still low, begins to warm the ground beneath their feet. The coolness of early morning starts to fade, replaced by a gentle, rising heat. As they walk, more people appear. A woman sweeping the ground just outside her home, moving dust aside in slow, careful strokes. A man adjusting a bundle of reeds, preparing them for use. Another child, younger, watching everything with quiet curiosity. The village is fully awake now. But still calm. Still steady. There is no sudden rush. Only the layering of small actions, one after another, building the day piece by piece. The child reaches their home. They lower the container slowly, placing it in its usual spot. The sound it makes as it meets the ground is soft, almost hollow, like a gentle tap. Their hands are slightly damp. They rub them together, feeling the last traces of the river disappear into the dry air. For a moment, they stand still. Listening again. The sounds have grown, but only slightly. Footsteps. Soft voices. The faint crackle of a fire being stirred back to life. Nothing sharp. Nothing overwhelming. Just the quiet movement of life continuing. Inside the home, the air feels a little warmer now. The mother moves nearby, preparing for the next part of the day. Her motions are smooth, practiced. Each action follows another without pause, without confusion. The child watches. This, too, is part of their learning. Not through instruction, not through long explanations, but through seeing and remembering. A small task is given. Simple. Clear. The child takes it without question. Perhaps it is to gather something. Perhaps to bring an object from one place to another. The exact task is less important than the act of doing it. They move again. Out into the light. The sun has risen further now. Its warmth settles gently across the land, touching everything evenly, the walls, the ground, the quiet shapes of daily life. The child walks with purpose, but still without haste. There is time. There is always time, in the way the day unfolds here. And as they continue, step by step, they become more deeply part of it. Not separate from the rhythm, but inside it. Carried by it. Like the river itself, always moving, always steady, always calm, the sun continues its slow rise. Its light now stretches fully across the village, settling gently on every surface. The soft gold of early morning begins to shift into a warmer, brighter tone. Shadows shorten. The coolness fades, little by little, replaced by a steady warmth that will remain for many hours. The child moves along the edge of the home, carrying out the small task they were given. Their hands are careful. Their steps are even. There is no feeling of being rushed, and no sense of delay. The work exists in its own quiet pace, neither fast nor slow, simply steady. Nearby, a low table of packed earth holds a few simple items. A clay bowl. A woven basket. A small bundle of something wrapped in cloth. Each object has its place. Each place is remembered. The child sets something down. Then adjusts it slightly. Then pauses. There is always a moment like this, a small stillness between one action and the next. It is not empty. It is part of the rhythm. A gentle space where nothing is required. From outside, the sounds of the village drift inward. Footsteps passing by. A soft voice speaking to another. The distant call of a bird. These sounds do not interrupt. They blend together, forming a quiet background that never becomes too loud, never disappears completely. The child steps back outside. The ground is warmer now beneath their feet. Not hot, but no longer cool. The change is subtle, but it is always noticed, even if only in a quiet way. They look toward the open space between homes. A few other children have gathered there. Not in a planned way. Not for a specific purpose. They have simply come together, as they often do, drawn by the slow unfolding of the morning. The child walks toward them. Again, there is no loud greeting. Just a shared presence. One of the children crouches near the ground, tracing a line in the dust with a small stick. The line curves, then stops, then begins again in a different direction. There is no clear shape, no finished design. Only movement. Another child watches. Then adds their own line beside it. Soon, the ground holds a pattern of marks, simple and uneven, but quietly meaningful to those who made them. The child kneels down. They take a small stick from the ground. For a moment, they do not move. They simply look. Then, slowly, they draw a short line. Then another. There is no pressure to create something perfect. No expectation. The act itself is enough, the feeling of the stick against the earth, the soft sound it makes, the way the dust shifts and gathers. A faint breeze moves through. It lifts a thin layer of dust, soft and light, and carries it just a little way before letting it fall again. Some of the lines blur. Some disappear. No one reacts. This is understood. Nothing here is meant to last forever. The children sit together in this quiet activity for a while. Time passes, though it is not measured. The sun rises higher. The warmth deepens. Eventually, one of the children stands. Not suddenly. Just a natural shift. The others follow, one by one, as if guided by the same quiet signal. There are more things to do. The day continues. The child turns back toward their home once more. Inside, the air feels different now, warmer, carrying the scent of food being prepared again. Something simple. Something familiar. The mother is there, moving steadily. She does not stop to explain. She does not call the child over with urgency. Instead, she continues her work, allowing the child to watch, to come closer, to understand through presence. The child steps beside her. They observe the movement of hands, the way ingredients are handled, the way tools are used. Each motion is smooth, practiced over many days, many years. A small portion is given to the child. Another simple task. They take it carefully. They try to match the same steady rhythm. Sometimes the movement is not perfect. Sometimes it is slightly uneven. But there is no correction given with sharpness. Only quiet patience. Learning here is slow. It settles in over time, like the warmth of the sun on the earth. Outside, the light has grown strong. The sky is clear, stretching wide and open above the land. The Nile continues its steady flow, unchanged by the passing hours. The village breathes in its own calm way. Nothing feels separate. Each action, each moment, connects softly to the next. The child finishes their small task. They step back again. For a moment, they do nothing. They simply stand, feeling the warmth around them, listening to the soft sounds that fill the space. Then, without needing to think about it, they move forward again. Into the next part of the day, the heat of the day grows slowly, the way it always does. It does not arrive all at once. It spreads. It settles. It becomes part of everything without needing to announce itself. The mud brick walls begin to feel warmer under the sun. The ground holds more heat now, no longer cool beneath the feet. The child moves outside again. The village has changed slightly since morning, though the change is quiet. Not dramatic. A few more people are visible now. A few more voices drift through the air. Work has shifted into a steady middle rhythm, where most things are already in motion. Near one of the homes, someone is weaving. Thin strips of plant fiber are pulled through careful hands, over and under, forming a pattern that slowly becomes a mat. The motion is repetitive, gentle, almost hypnotic in its consistency. The child watches for a moment, then continues walking. There is no urgency in their steps, only direction. A group of older children can be seen near a shaded area. They sit in a loose circle, listening to someone speak. Not in the way of a formal lesson, but something softer. A sharing of knowledge that feels natural, passed from one person to another like water being poured into a vessel. The child moves closer. Not to interrupt, just to listen. The voice is calm. It speaks of simple things, of how grain is handled, of how tools are cared for, of how certain tasks are done slowly, so they last longer and work better. There is no pressure to memorize quickly. The words drift gently into the space, like the breeze that moves through the village from time to time, touching everything but holding on to nothing. The child stands at the edge of the group, listening, breathing, understanding in a quiet way that does not feel like effort. After a while, the lesson shifts. The speaker begins to demonstrate something with their hands. A simple movement. A careful motion repeated slowly so others can see. The children observe. Some imitate the movement quietly. Others simply watch. The child tries once. Their hands are not perfect in the motion, but they adjust. Try again. And again. There is no laughter. No correction that feels sharp. Only small guidance, offered gently when needed, and then left alone. Time passes like this. Softly. Without pressure. Eventually, the group begins to disperse. One by one, they rise and move away, returning to other parts of the village. The shaded space grows quiet again, though not empty. It still holds the memory of voices, of learning, of attention. The child turns away. The sun is higher now. The warmth is stronger. A faint stillness begins to settle over certain parts of the village, the kind that comes in the middle of the day when movement slows slightly and people focus inward. Inside one of the homes, the air is cooler. The child enters. The shade feels different after being in the sun. Softer. Heavier. The transition is noticeable, but not uncomfortable. It is simply another part of the rhythm. A container of water sits nearby. The child drinks. Slowly. The water is not cold, but it is refreshing in its simplicity. It moves through them gently, easing the heat that has built up outside. A short rest follows. Not marked by sleep necessarily, but by stillness. The child sits near the wall, listening again. The sounds outside continue, but they feel farther away now. Muffled by distance and by the thick walls of the home. A small breeze enters through an opening. It moves across the room lightly. It does not cool everything, but it reminds the space that the outside world is still there, still moving, still breathing. After some time, movement returns. Not rushed. Just natural. The child stands again. There are more small tasks waiting. There always are. Not heavy. Not overwhelming. Just pieces of the day that need attention. They step outside once more. The light is strong now. The sky is bright and wide. The Nile continues its steady presence in the distance, unchanged, as if it carries all of the village's moments without ever being affected by them. The child walks again along the familiar paths. Their shadow falls short beside them. Every step feels part of something larger and quieter than any single moment. And as the day continues in its slow, steady rhythm, the child continues with it. Not separate. Not rushed. Simply moving forward, as everything else does, in its own calm and patient way. The afternoon light settles fully over the village now. It is the brightest part of the day, when the sun stands high and steady, and everything beneath it feels still and open. Shadows shrink close to the ground. Colors become more washed in light. The air itself feels heavier, warmed by hours of sun. Movement in the village does not stop, but it softens. Everything becomes slower in its own way. The child walks along a narrow path near the edge of the homes. The ground here is dry and firm, holding the memory of many footsteps. A faint dust rises sometimes when someone passes, then quickly settles again, as if nothing disturbed it at all. In the distance, the Nile remains constant. It does not change with the hour. It does not hurry or pause. It simply moves forward, carrying its quiet strength through the land. The river feels like a second sky at times, stretched long and wide, reflecting the light in a soft shimmer. The child pauses for a moment in the shade of a wall. The difference between sun and shade is clear here. The shade feels almost like another world, cooler, quieter, more still. Even the sounds seem to soften inside it. A few nearby adults rest or work slowly. Hands continue small tasks. Repairing. Preparing. Sorting. Nothing urgent. Everything measured in calm repetition. The child watches briefly. Then continues walking. There is a small structure nearby where grain is stored. Its walls are thick, designed to protect what is inside from heat and time. A few people move in and out of it carefully, carrying baskets or containers. Their movements are steady, practiced. The child approaches. Not to enter deeply. Just to help. A simple task is given again. Something light. Something familiar. They take it without hesitation. Inside, the air is dimmer. Cooler. The smell of stored grain is subtle but constant, like dry earth mixed with something soft and nourishing. The child moves carefully between others, following small instructions that are not spoken loudly, but understood easily. There is no confusion here. Everything has its place. Everything moves in its own rhythm. After a short time, the task is complete. The child steps back outside. The brightness returns immediately, like stepping from one world into another. The sun is still high, still steady. The village continues its slow afternoon pace. A group of younger children passes nearby. They are carrying small objects, simple tools, pieces of woven material, things needed for small tasks or learning. Their steps are uneven but familiar. They speak softly among themselves, their voices blending into the warm air. The child watches them pass. Then turns away. There is a sense in this time of day that everything is ongoing. Nothing begins sharply. Nothing ends sharply. It all continues, gently, like water flowing through the same path it always has. The child finds a shaded place again. They sit. The ground beneath them is warm but not burning. The shade from a nearby wall stretches slowly as the sun moves, though the movement is almost unnoticeable unless watched carefully over time. Breathing becomes slower here. Easier. The sounds of the village feel distant but present. A soft tapping of tools. A quiet exchange of words. The occasional call from one person to another, never loud, never urgent. The child's eyes drift slightly. Not tired. Just resting. The afternoon holds this kind of quiet stillness, where even thought feels softer, less defined. After a while, movement returns again. Not from outside pressure, but naturally, like waking from a pause. The child stands. The light has not changed dramatically, but it carries a subtle shift. The day is slowly moving toward its later hours now, though it still feels far from evening. There are more small things to do. Always more small things. They walk again along the paths between homes, where life continues in quiet layers. Someone is repairing a woven mat. Someone else is shaping clay. A faint smell of food being prepared rises again in the air, not for urgency, but for routine. Everything feels connected. Nothing isolated. The child carries this feeling without naming it. They simply move with it. The Nile continues in the distance, unchanged and patient, as it always is. And the village, under the wide sky, keeps its slow rhythm, steady, simple, and calm, like it has done for as long as memory can reach. The afternoon begins to soften. It is not a sudden change. It never is. The light slowly loses a little of its sharpness, becoming warmer, more angled, as if the sky itself is exhaling after holding still for so long. The village feels this shift without needing to notice it directly. Work continues, but with less weight in it. Movements become slightly slower, slightly more measured. Not from exhaustion, but from the natural rhythm of the day reaching its next stage. The child walks through a narrow passage between two homes. The walls here are close together, made of packed earth and straw, shaped by careful hands. The surface is uneven in places, but familiar. Each small imperfection has been seen many times before, and so it feels normal, even comforting. A faint breeze passes through the passage. It is brief, but it cools the air just enough to be noticed. The child pauses for a moment, listening. There is a sound nearby of someone grinding grain. A steady, repetitive motion. Stone against stone. Slow, patient work that does not change in rhythm, only in duration. The child moves toward it. Not with curiosity that is sharp or excited, but with quiet attention. Inside a shaded space, an older person works the grinding stone with steady hands. The motion is circular, unbroken. Grain becomes flour in small, gradual stages, never rushed. The child watches. There is something almost calming in the repetition. The same movement again and again, without variation, without interruption. After a moment, the child is given a small role. Not to lead, not to control, but to assist. They place their hands carefully, learning the motion by feeling it rather than thinking about it. The rhythm is simple, but it requires attention. A balance between pressure and ease, between movement and stillness. Time becomes less noticeable here. It stretches quietly. The sound of grinding fills the space in a steady pattern, like a heartbeat that does not change. After a while, the task is complete. The child steps back. Their hands are slightly warm from the work, but not tired. They leave the shaded space and step back into the light. The difference is immediate again. Sunlight greets them gently, still strong but no longer as high as before. The angle has shifted. Shadows are a little longer now, stretching further across the ground. The village feels slightly different in this light. Softer. Less intense. More open in a quiet way. The child walks again. Along familiar paths. Past homes where doors are partially open, letting air move through. Past small courtyards where tools rest after use. Past people who are finishing tasks or preparing for the later part of the day. There is no rush anywhere. Everything feels like it is slowly easing into the next stage of time. The river is visible again in the distance. The Nile reflects the changing light, its surface now less bright, more golden in tone. It continues its steady movement, unchanged by the hour, always present, always flowing. The child stops near the edge of the path, watching it for a moment. There is a quietness in the way it moves that feels familiar, even if not fully understood. It does not begin or end. It simply continues. After a short pause, the child turns away. There are still small tasks waiting. There always are. But now, the feeling of the day is different. The weight of midday has eased. The world feels slightly more open, slightly more gentle. The child moves with this change. Their steps are unhurried, balanced. The village continues around them in its soft rhythm. A place where every action is connected, where every moment flows into the next without sharp edges. And as the afternoon slowly moves toward its later hours, everything remains steady. Quiet. Endless in its calm repetition, the light of late afternoon begins to stretch farther across the land. It is softer now, less direct, as if the sun is slowly lowering its voice. The heat is still present, but it no longer presses down with the same strength it held at midday. Instead, it lingers gently, carried on a steady breeze that moves through the village in small, passing waves. The child walks without a fixed direction for a while. This part of the day allows for that. Not everything is tied to a specific task. Some moments exist simply for moving, for observing, for being part of the village without needing instruction. The ground beneath their feet feels slightly different now. Warmer in some places, cooler in others where shade has begun to spread. The contrast is subtle, but noticeable if one pays attention. Near a low wall, a few adults are repairing woven materials. Hands move carefully through fibers, pulling, adjusting, tightening. The work is quiet. Repetitive. It does not demand speed. It demands patience. The child stops nearby. watching. There is a kind of calm in watching work being done slowly and correctly. Each motion is deliberate. Each adjustment has purpose. Nothing is wasted. After a moment, the child is handed a small piece of material. Not to finish. Just to help. They try. The hands are smaller, less practiced, but they follow what they have seen. There is no expectation of perfection. Only participation. A faint sound of laughter passes somewhere in the distance, not loud, not sharp, but light and brief, like air moving through reeds. It fades quickly, leaving the space quiet again. The child finishes their small part. It is enough. They step back into the open path. The village now feels different than it did in the morning or midday. There is a shift in tone. A sense that the day is slowly turning toward its final stages, though still far from ending. The sun is lower. The shadows are longer. They stretch now across the ground in soft lines, connecting one space to another in quiet patterns. The child walks along these shadows, stepping through them, passing through light and shade without thinking about it, as if both belong equally to the same path. Ahead, the Nile appears again. Closer now. The river catches the late light, turning it into a long, glowing reflection that moves slowly with the water. It feels calmer in this hour, though it was never truly restless before. A few figures stand near the bank, silhouettes against the light. They are still working, still gathering, still moving through their own steady tasks. But their pace is unhurried now, shaped by the easing of the day. The child approaches the river again, but does not kneel this time. They simply stand at the edge, watching. The water moves as it always does. Endless. Unbothered by time passing above it. There is something steady in that movement that does not need explanation. It is simply there, always continuing. After a while, the child turns away. The path back toward the village feels familiar in this light. Even more familiar than before. Everything seems slightly softened by the angle of the sun. Homes appear warmer in color. Walls glow faintly. The air carries a quieter tone. Inside one of the homes, preparations begin for the evening meal. The child enters. The space feels different now than it did in the morning. The light inside is lower, filtered through openings, no longer bright but gently dimming. Movement here is slow and practiced. Food is being prepared in simple ways. Nothing elaborate. Everything measured by habit and memory. The child assists again. Small tasks. Familiar motions. Hands moving in patterns that are becoming more natural with each repetition. There is no rush to finish. Only the steady continuation of care. Outside, the sky continues to change. The bright blue of midday is now giving way to softer tones. Gold begins to deepen, and faint hints of orange touch the edges of the horizon. The village moves with this change. Not all at once, but gradually. As if everyone is unconsciously following the same quiet signal. The child steps outside once more. The air feels different again. Slightly cooler. Slightly softer. The long arc of the day is now clearly moving toward evening, though it has not yet arrived. The child stands for a moment in the open space, listening. The sounds of the village are quieter now, slower, more spaced apart. Work is not finished, but it is winding down, easing into rest without ever fully stopping. The Nile continues its steady presence in the distance. Always there. Always moving. And as the light begins to soften further, the village remains in its calm rhythm, unhurried, familiar, and gently alive under the fading warmth of the day. Evening begins the way it always does here. Not with a clear moment of change, but with a slow softening of everything at once. The light lowers across the village, spreading itself thin and golden, touching the tops of the homes first, then slipping gently down the walls, as if it is taking its time to say goodbye to each surface. The child walks slowly along the familiar path again. The ground is cooler now than it was earlier. The heat that built up through the day is fading, leaving behind a quieter kind of warmth, one that lingers instead of pressing. The air feels lighter, easier to breathe. Near one of the homes, a fire is being prepared. Not large. Not bright yet. Just the beginning of it. Small sticks are arranged carefully. A steady hand brings flame to them, and slowly, the fire responds. First a faint glow. Then a soft flicker. Then a gentle steady burn. There is no rush in its arrival. It grows at its own pace. The child watches for a moment. Fire here is not loud or wild. It is controlled. Respected. Used for warmth, for food, for light as the day fades. Nearby, people move more slowly now. Tasks are finishing. Tools are being set down. Hands are being washed in simple water bowls placed outside homes. The water catches the fading light, reflecting it in small, trembling shapes. The child joins this motion. Not because it is required at a specific moment, but because it is part of the ending of the day. A gentle closing. The village feels quieter with each passing minute. Not empty. Just softened. Voices are fewer now. When they appear, they are calm, low, unhurried. Conversations do not stretch long. They come and go like small breaths in the air. The child returns to their home. Inside, the light is dimmer. The fire inside has been adjusted, kept small and steady. It casts a warm glow across the interior walls, making them seem less solid, almost alive in their shifting light. The evening meal is shared. Simple food. Familiar taste. Taken slowly. There is no noise that disrupts the moment. Only the quiet sounds of eating, of movement, of settling. Outside, the sky changes further. The golden tones deepen into soft orange, then into a muted red along the horizon. Above that, the sky becomes pale again, slowly transitioning toward night. The Nile reflects these colors. It carries them without holding onto them, letting each shade pass across its surface and disappear into the next. The child finishes eating. Hands are placed down gently. There is no hurry to stand. No urgency to move. Instead, there is a pause that feels longer than the others during the day. A space where everything slows even more. Outside, the village continues to quiet. One by one, small signs of activity fade. Doors are closed. Fires are reduced. Objects are placed in their resting positions. The child steps outside once more. The air is cooler now. Noticeably so. A soft breeze moves through the paths between homes, carrying the scent of earth, smoke, and river water. It is a familiar combination, one that belongs only to this time of day. The sky above is changing quickly now. Color draining gently into darker tones. The first faint appearance of early evening stars begins to show, subtle and distant, not yet bright, but present. The child looks upward briefly. Then forward again. The village is now in its quietest stage of transition. Not fully asleep. Not fully awake. A soft in-between space where everything slows to its calmest form. The child returns inside. The fire inside the home flickers gently, casting long shadows that move slowly across the walls. The light feels warm against the growing coolness outside. There are no more tasks now. Only stillness. The child sits close to the wall, listening. The sounds outside are faint. Occasional movement. A distant voice that fades quickly. The soft crackle of fire from nearby homes. Everything feels distant, even when it is close. The body begins to settle. Not into deep sleep yet, but into the preparation for it. Breathing slows naturally. Thoughts become less defined. The day, with all its small movements, its simple tasks, its quiet learning, begins to fold inward. Outside, the Nile continues its endless motion under the darkening sky. Unchanged. Constant. And the village, under the soft rise of night, becomes stiller and stiller, until only the gentle presence of evening remains. Night arrives the way it always does here. Slowly. Without announcement. The last color in the sky fades into a deep, quiet blue. The stars, once faint, now become clearer, one by one, appearing like small steady lights scattered across the vastness above. The village is almost completely still now. Fires inside homes are reduced to soft glowing embers. Not bright enough to fill the room, but enough to hold warmth. Enough to remind each space that life is still present, even in silence. The child sits quietly inside the home. The wall beside them holds the last warmth of the day, slowly releasing it into the cooler air. The floor is still. The room is still. Even the shadows feel softer now, less defined, as if they are resting too. Outside, the Nile continues its movement. It does not change for night. It does not pause. It flows under the dark sky just as it did under the bright sun, carrying the reflection of stars instead of daylight now, turning the water into something quieter, deeper, almost endless. Inside the home, movement becomes minimal. A final adjustment of a sleeping mat. A soft repositioning of a cloth. Small, careful actions that close the day without effort. The child lies down. Not suddenly. Not with finality. But slowly, as if lowering into the night rather than entering it. The woven mat beneath them feels familiar. The air is cooler now, but still comfortable, holding the warmth of the home that was built during the day. there is no urgency left anywhere. Only rest. The sounds outside are faint now. A distant movement that fades quickly. A soft rustle of wind passing through reeds near the river. Then silence again. Not empty silence, but full silence. The kind that holds everything gently without needing to speak. The child's breathing becomes slower. Even. Steady. The fire inside the home dims further, becoming only a faint glow, barely lighting the edges of the room. Above, through a small opening in the wall, a few stars are visible. Small. Constant. Unmoving from this distance, yet part of something vast and endless. The child watches them briefly. Not with thought. Just awareness. Then their eyes begin to close. The day is no longer separate from them. It has settled into memory without needing to be held. The work. The water. The learning. The walking paths. The river. All of it now feels distant, but still present, like echoes that do not fade completely, only soften. Outside, the village is fully at rest. Homes hold quiet bodies in still spaces. Fires breathe slowly in their last warmth. The river continues, always continuing, under a sky that has turned fully dark now, carrying stars above it like scattered reflections. Inside the home, there is only stillness. The child's breathing slows further. The room grows quieter than it was a moment ago, even though no sound has changed. It is perception that shifts now, not the world. Everything softens. Everything settles. And the night continues, wide and calm, surrounding the village like a gentle presence that asks nothing, holds everything, and never rushes toward morning. The story does not end. It simply becomes quiet. And stays that way. The night does not feel like an ending here. It feels more like a pause in something that never truly stops. The village rests under a wide, dark sky, where the stars are steady and patient, scattered across the height of the world like quiet points of light that have always been there. Some are bright. Some are faint. All of them remain still. Inside the homes, there is only soft darkness now. The last traces of firelight have dimmed to glowing embers, small and steady, like slow breathing in the corner of each space. They give just enough warmth to keep the night from feeling cold. The child sleeps. Not deeply at first. Sleep here arrives in layers, like the way the day itself unfolds. Slowly. Gently. Without force. Their body rests against the woven mat, still and relaxed. The sounds of the village outside are nearly gone now, reduced to the faintest impressions, occasional movement, a distant rustle, the soft shifting of wind across dry earth. The Nile continues its movement beyond the homes. It does not change with sleep or wakefulness. It does not become quieter or louder. It simply flows. Under the night sky, it reflects starlight in broken lines that move endlessly forward, never holding any shape for long, always becoming something new in the next moment. Time passes here without urgency. One moment blends into the next without clear division. Inside the home, the air grows cooler as the night deepens. But it is not harsh. It is balanced by the warmth that still lingers in the walls, in the ground, in the memory of the day that just passed. The child shifts slightly in sleep. A small movement. Then stillness again. Outside, a soft wind moves through the village. It passes over rooftops made of earth and straw. It slips between narrow paths where footsteps were once constant during the day. It moves through everything gently, without disturbing anything that rests. The stars remain above. Constant. Unmoving to the eye, though always part of a greater motion that cannot be seen. They feel distant, but not separate. Present, but not demanding attention. The village is now fully quiet. Not silent in a way that feels empty, but silent in a way that feels complete. As if everything that needed to happen has happened, and now the world is simply holding itself still for a while. The child breathes steadily. In. Out. The rhythm is slow and even, blending with the stillness around them until it feels like part of it. There is no awareness of time now. No sense of beginning or end. Only rest. Only the soft continuation of being. Outside, the Nile flows onward beneath the sky, carrying the reflection of night across its surface, never stopping, never changing its nature, only moving forward in a quiet, endless line. And so the village remains under the wide darkness. Homes resting. Firelight fading into memory. The day fully gone, yet still held gently within everything it touched. The night continues. Soft. Deep. Uninterrupted. And eventually, even that sense of passing begins to fade, until there is only stillness left. Just stillness. And the quiet presence of everything, resting together beneath the same sky. The night deepens even further now. It is the kind of darkness that feels complete, but not heavy. There is no fear in it, no tension. Only a quiet, steady vastness that covers the land like a soft covering made not of fabric, but of time itself. The village sleeps more fully now. Inside each home, bodies rest in still positions. Breathing continues in slow, natural rhythm. There is no movement that belongs to waking life anymore. Only the gentle signs of sleep, steady and unbroken. The child sleeps deeply now. Their mind has drifted far from the hours of the day. There are no thoughts that feel sharp or clear. Only fragments, soft and unformed, like drifting pieces of the day dissolving into darkness. The Nile continues to move. It is the only constant presence that never truly rests. Even now, in the deepest part of night, it flows through the land with quiet certainty. Its surface is dark, but not empty. It holds reflections of stars and sky, breaking them into soft fragments that travel endlessly forward. A faint breeze moves across the water. It touches the reeds along the riverbank. It passes through them gently, making a sound so soft it almost feels imagined. Then it fades. The land returns to stillness again. Above, the stars remain unchanged. They do not move in a way that can be seen. They simply exist in their places, distant and patient, like quiet witnesses to everything below. Inside the village, nothing stirs beyond what is necessary. A small shift of a sleeping body. A quiet settling of fabric. The soft sound of wind passing through a narrow opening in a wall. Each of these things is small enough to be part of the silence rather than break it. Time continues without being noticed. Minutes do not feel like minutes. Hours do not feel like hours. There is only the night, stretching evenly in all directions. The child's breathing remains slow and steady. In this deep rest, the body holds the memory of the day without needing to recall it. Everything learned, everything seen, everything done, settles quietly into stillness. Not forgotten. Just resting. Outside, the Nile carries on its journey. It does not belong to the village alone. It belongs to the land, to the distant places it touches and passes, to the unseen paths it follows beyond what can be known from here. And yet, in this moment, it feels close. Like a presence that never leaves. The night holds everything in a gentle balance. The earth is still. The air is still. Even the idea of movement feels softened, as if it exists only in memory now. Inside the homes, sleep continues. Deep. Uninterrupted. The child remains at rest, fully part of the quiet that fills the world around them. There is no sense of time passing anymore. Only the steady, endless presence of night. And slowly, without change, without notice, everything remains as it is, held in calm darkness, beneath a sky that watches without moving, and a river that flows without end. The night holds steady. Not growing darker anymore, not changing in any noticeable way. It has reached its fullest depth, where everything feels equally still, equally quiet, equally distant from the movement of the day. The village rests completely now. Every home is still. Every path is empty. Every small sound that once belonged to the waking hours has faded into the background of sleep. The child remains asleep. Their body is relaxed, unmoving, held gently by rest. There is no awareness of time passing, no sense of the world continuing outside the walls of the home. Only deep, quiet sleep that carries them through the night like a slow, even current. Outside, the Nile continues its motion. It never changes its rhythm. It does not respond to the silence of the land around it. It simply flows, steady and patient, under the wide sky that stretches endlessly above. The stars remain scattered across that sky. Some appear brighter now as the night has fully settled. Others are faint, almost blending into the darkness. Together, they form a calm pattern that does not demand attention, but gently exists above everything. A small shift of air moves across the river again. Soft. Barely noticeable. It touches the surface of the water and moves on, leaving no trace behind except a slight ripple that disappears almost immediately. Then stillness returns. Inside the village, the silence is complete in the way only deep night can be. Not absolute emptiness, but a full, layered quiet that includes everything at rest, homes, earth, water, air, and all the lives within them. The child sleeps through this entire quiet world. Their breathing remains slow and steady. There is a comfort in it that does not need to be thought about. It is simply there, like the ground beneath the homes, like the river beyond them, like the sky above them. Time continues to pass, but gently. Without edges. Without notice. The night does not rush toward morning. It simply exists, holding everything in a long, uninterrupted pause. And within this pause, everything remains safe in stillness. The village does not change. The river does not change. The sky does not change. Only the quiet passage of time moves forward, unseen, carrying everything with it in the softest possible way. The child remains asleep. And the night continues. Endlessly calm. Softly present. Unbroken, the night is now at its quietest point. Not because it has become more silent than before, but because everything that could settle has already settled. There is nothing left moving that does not belong to rest. Even the feeling of time itself seems slower now, stretched thin across the dark sky. The village remains still. Homes are dark shapes resting against the earth, their outlines softened by moonlight. Paths between them are barely visible, more remembered than seen. Everything feels gently held in place, as if the land itself is resting without effort. The child continues to sleep. Deeply. Evenly. Their breathing blends into the quiet of the room, becoming part of it rather than separate from it. There is no tension in their body, no awareness of anything beyond the simple state of rest. Outside, the Nile moves on. It does not reflect urgency. It does not reflect stillness. It simply continues, carrying the night along its surface in long, smooth motion. The stars above remain unchanged, but the sky around them feels slightly different now, less like an open space and more like a vast, quiet covering that holds everything below it gently. A faint sound passes through the village. So soft it almost does not exist. Perhaps wind moving through reeds near the river. Perhaps nothing more than the memory of movement from earlier in the day. It comes. And then it is gone. The silence returns immediately, as if it had never been interrupted at all. Inside the homes, sleep continues without interruption. No one stirs. No one wakes. The child remains still, fully within the deep rhythm of night. There is a sense here, not spoken, not thought, but simply present, that everything is in its proper place. The day has completed its cycle. The night has taken its turn. And now there is only the quiet continuation of being. Time passes again. Slowly. Without markers. Without division. The river flows. The sky holds its stars. The land rests beneath both, unchanged and calm. Inside the village, the world feels distant but not absent. It is still there, still present, but softened by sleep, as if everything has been wrapped in a gentle quiet that allows nothing to disturb it. The child breathes again. In. Out. A steady rhythm that continues without thought, without interruption, without awareness. And so the night remains. Not moving toward anything. Not ending. Just existing, fully and quietly, holding the village, the river, and the sleeping child in the same soft, endless stillness beneath the wide and patient sky. The deepest part of night settles in now, when even the idea of movement feels far away. Everything in the village rests as if the land itself has chosen to pause. Not in exhaustion, but in a natural completion of rhythm. The kind of stillness that comes after a full cycle has been quietly lived. The air is cooler now. It moves gently through narrow spaces between homes, passing through without resistance. It does not disturb anything. It only exists, softly, like a presence that belongs to the night. The child sleeps on. Their body remains calm, untouched by the passing hours. In sleep, There is no separation between moments. No awareness of beginning or continuation. Only a soft, uninterrupted state where everything feels distant and close at the same time. Outside, the Nile continues. It is the only movement that remains constant. Its surface is dark, but not empty. It carries faint reflections of the sky, broken and shifting, never fixed in one shape long enough to be held. The river moves forward as it always has, through darkness as easily as through light. A faint rustle passes through reeds along its edge. It is brief. Almost nothing. Then it fades, leaving the water unchanged. The stars above remain steady. They do not grow brighter or dimmer in any visible way. They simply continue to exist, scattered across the wide sky, distant and patient. The village holds its silence deeply now. No doors open. No footsteps cross the paths. No voices rise or fall. Even the memory of daytime activity feels far away, as if it belongs to another layer of time entirely. Inside the home, the child shifts slightly in sleep. A small movement. Then stillness returns. The fire inside has nearly gone out now, leaving only a faint glow that barely touches the walls. The room is darker, but not uncomfortable. Darkness here is familiar. It does not press. It simply surrounds. Time continues without being noticed. There is no need for it to be measured. No need for it to be marked. It passes anyway, slowly and evenly, like water moving through soil that accepts it completely. The river continues. The sky remains open and wide. The village stays still beneath both. Everything is held in the same quiet balance, where nothing demands attention and nothing breaks the calm. The child sleeps deeper now. Breathing slow. Steady. Fully within rest. And the night continues without change, without direction, without end, carrying everything gently forward in its long and silent flow. The night begins to soften, though it is still deep. Not in the sense that it is ending quickly, but in the quiet way darkness always shifts when morning is still far away, yet already somewhere beyond the horizon. The village remains still. But the stillness feels slightly different now. Less like a pause, and more like a long breath held between one part of time and the next. Inside the homes, sleep continues without interruption. The child rests as they have for many hours now, their body calm and steady against the woven mat. There is no awareness of change, no awareness of time moving toward anything new. Only rest, deep and complete. Outside, the Nile moves on. It is unchanged in its motion, but the sky above it begins to show the faintest suggestion of transition. Not color yet. Not light. Only a subtle lessening of darkness in the far distance, so gentle it is almost uncertain. The stars still shine above. But they feel slightly less sharp than before, as if the night is slowly loosening its hold on the sky. A faint breeze passes through the village again. It is cooler now. Carrying the last breath of night air across the ground, touching the walls of homes, slipping through small openings, and then fading away without leaving any trace. No one wakes. Nothing reacts. The village remains in sleep. Inside the child's home, the fire is fully gone now. Only the memory of warmth remains in the air, held softly in the walls and ground. The room is darker than before, but it is a familiar darkness, one that belongs to the final hours of night. The child turns slightly in sleep. A natural movement. Then stillness returns. Time continues to pass, but it feels almost weightless now. No longer something that moves forward in clear steps, but something that drifts gently, like water flowing without sound. The river continues its steady path. The sky holds its fading night. And the land between them rests quietly, as if waiting without expectation. There is no urgency in this waiting. No tension. Only a calm continuity that stretches across everything. The village remains asleep. The child remains asleep. And the night, though still present, begins to loosen ever so slightly at its edges, as if preparing, without announcement, for the first quiet hint of morning that has not yet arrived. The last part of night lingers gently over the land. It is not fully gone, but it is no longer as deep as before. Something in the air has shifted in a way that cannot be seen clearly, only felt, like the quiet easing of a long-held stillness. The village remains asleep. Everything is calm, unchanged on the surface. Homes sit in their familiar places. Paths remain empty. The river continues its slow, endless movement beyond the edge of the village. Inside, the child sleeps on. Their breathing remains steady, unchanged by the subtle shift outside. Sleep holds them fully, without interruption, without awareness of anything beyond rest. The room around them is dim. Very dim. But not completely dark anymore. There is a faint suggestion of space within the darkness now, as if the night is beginning to loosen its grip just slightly. Not enough for clear shapes. Only enough to hint that light is not far away. Outside, the Nile reflects something new. Not light yet. But the idea of light. A soft, uncertain brightness that begins somewhere far beyond the horizon, still invisible, but slowly arriving in the way the world always prepares for morning. The stars remain overhead. But they feel quieter now. Less like fixed points, and more like distant watchers slowly fading into the background of the sky. A gentle breeze moves again across the land. It is cooler than before. Cleaner in feeling. It passes through the reeds near the river, through the narrow spaces between homes, and across the still paths where no footsteps have walked for hours. It does not wake anything. It simply moves through. The village remains in sleep. But it is a sleep that feels closer to waking than before, even if nothing has yet changed in form or action. Inside the home, the child shifts slightly again. A soft adjustment in position. Then stillness. The rhythm of breathing continues, calm and even, like a steady line that does not break. Time passes in this way. Without markings. Without sound. Without urgency. The night is still here, but it no longer feels endless. It feels like something that is slowly preparing to release its hold, gently and without effort. The river continues its motion. The sky holds its fading darkness. And everything in the village remains at rest, suspended in the quiet space between what has passed and what has not yet begun. The child sleeps deeply. And the world waits, still and calm, for the first quiet suggestion of morning that has not yet arrived, but is already beginning somewhere far beyond the edge of the sky. The darkness begins to thin, almost imperceptibly. Not all at once, not in any clear moment, but in a slow, gentle easing that spreads across the sky like breath returning after a long silence. The village remains asleep, still held in the final stretch of night, still resting in the quiet space where nothing asks to be done and nothing yet calls for waking. Inside the homes, sleep continues. The child rests as they have through the deepest hours of the night, their body calm, their breathing steady, their mind fully given over to rest. There is no awareness of change. Only stillness. Only the soft continuity of sleep. Outside, the Nile keeps moving. It does not respond to the shift in the sky. It does not change its rhythm or pace. It simply continues forward, carrying the reflection of the fading night along its surface. But something above it is different now. The darkness is no longer absolute. There are faint layers within it, subtle variations that suggest depth where before there was only uniform night. The sky feels less like a closed space and more like something slowly opening. The stars are still present, but their sharpness softens. Some appear less distinct, as if they are beginning to step back into the distance they came from. A quiet breeze passes through the village again. It is gentle, almost cool enough to feel like the memory of night itself being carried away in small pieces. It moves through the reeds along the river, across the packed earth paths, and between the still forms of sleeping homes. Nothing stirs. Everything remains in rest. Inside the child's home, the air is slightly lighter now. Not warmer. Not brighter. Just lighter in a way that feels subtle, like the world itself is beginning to release a long-held stillness. The child breathes in sleep, then out. The rhythm does not change, but everything around it is quietly shifting. Time continues its slow passage, without markers, without interruption. The night is still present, but it feels less like a fixed state now, and more like something gently giving way to what comes next. The river continues its motion. The land remains still. And the sky, slowly and softly, begins to lean toward the first unseen edge of morning, still far away, but no longer hidden completely within the depth of night. The village sleeps on. Quiet. Whole. Unbroken. And the world waits in calm transition, held between darkness and the faintest beginning of light that has not yet arrived, but is already near. The last stretch of night feels different now, though nothing has visibly changed all at once. It is still dark across the village. Still quiet. Still resting. But there is a subtle softness in the darkness, as if it no longer holds the same weight it carried earlier in the night. Everything feels slightly more open, slightly less enclosed. Inside the homes, sleep continues. The child remains deeply at rest. Their breathing is slow and even, unchanged by anything happening beyond the walls. Sleep holds them fully, without disturbance, without awareness of the world slowly shifting outside. The room around them is still dim. But it is no longer absolute darkness. There is a faint suggestion of space now, a barely noticeable lightness in the air that did not exist before. It does not illuminate anything yet. It only exists as a gentle possibility. Outside, the Nile flows on. It carries the same steady movement it has carried all night, unchanged in rhythm, untouched by the passage of time above it. But the sky reflected in its surface is beginning to lose some of its depth of darkness. Not yet turning bright. Only loosening. The stars above remain visible. But they feel quieter now, as if they are slowly retreating into the distance, leaving more space between themselves and the world below. A soft wind passes again through the village. It is cool. Very gentle. It moves across the ground without sound, touching the walls of homes, slipping through narrow spaces, and fading as it travels onward. Nothing responds. The village remains asleep. But the feeling of deep night is no longer as strong as before. It has shifted into something softer, something that feels closer to transition than stillness. Inside the child's home, the air is slightly different. Not warmer. Not brighter. Just subtly lighter, as if the space itself is beginning to breathe again after a long pause. The child turns slightly in sleep. A small movement. Then stillness returns immediately. The rhythm of rest continues without interruption. Time moves forward quietly. Without edges. Without clear divisions. The night is still present, but it no longer feels endless. It feels like it is slowly opening toward something beyond itself, something not yet visible but quietly approaching. The river continues its motion. The land remains still. And the sky, vast and patient, holds the final hours of darkness with a gentleness that suggests change is near, though not yet arrived. The village sleeps on. Deep. Calm. Unbroken. And everything waits, softly and quietly, in the space between the end of night and the very first hint of morning that has not yet begun to show itself. The village remains in its deepest quiet, but now the quiet feels different again. Not heavier. Not lighter. Just closer to change. The night is still present over the land, but it no longer feels completely still in the same way it did hours before. There is a soft sense that time is gently preparing to move forward in a visible way. Inside the homes, sleep continues without interruption. The child rests deeply. Their body is still, fully at ease, carried by long hours of rest that have softened every part of the day away. There is no awareness of anything outside the quiet of sleep. The room around them is dim, but no longer fully closed in darkness. A faint openness is beginning to appear, not as light yet, but as space within the dark itself, like the world is slowly loosening its hold on night. Outside, the Nile continues to flow. It does not change its rhythm. It never does. But the sky above it is now slightly different than before. The darkness is no longer uniform. It has layers, softer edges, subtle gradients that hint at something approaching beyond the horizon. The stars are still there. But they feel more distant now, as if the sky is gently returning them to the background from which they came. A light wind moves across the land again. It is cooler than before. And quieter. It passes through the village without disturbing anything, touching the surfaces of homes, moving through the reeds by the river, and fading into the open air beyond. Nothing wakes. Everything remains in rest. But the feeling of the night has changed. It is no longer the deep center of darkness. It is the beginning of its release. Inside the child's home, the air feels slightly different again. There is no sudden shift. Only a soft adjustment, like the world itself is breathing more gently now. The child remains asleep. Their breathing steady. Unchanged. Still part of the quiet rhythm that has carried them through the entire night. Time continues forward. Slow. Unmarked. The river moves on beneath the sky, carrying reflections that are less about stars now and more about the faint suggestion of something beyond them. The land stays still. The village sleeps. And above everything, the night begins its slow and patient transition towards something not yet visible, but quietly arriving, like the first breath of morning held just beyond the edge of darkness, waiting without urgency to become light. The final hours of night settle gently over the village. There is still darkness, but it is no longer complete. It feels thinner now, stretched in places where it once felt deep and unbroken. The change is not visible in a clear way. It is felt more than seen, like a quiet shift in the weight of the air, like the world slowly loosening its hold on sleep. Inside the homes, everything remains still. The child continues to sleep. Deeply. Evenly. Their breathing is calm and unbroken, blending with the silence of the room. There is no sign of waking yet, no movement that belongs to the day. Only rest, steady and full. But the space around them feels subtly different now. Not brighter. Not warmer. Just slightly more open, as if the darkness itself is becoming less dense. Outside, the Nile continues its long movement through the land. It has not changed. It never does. But the reflection on its surface is shifting. The stars are still visible, but they northwest longer feel as close in their reflection. The water seems to carry a softer version of the sky now, one that is slowly preparing to change. A faint breeze passes once more. It is very light. Almost careful. It moves across the village without sound, slipping through narrow spaces between homes, brushing over the reeds near the river, and fading into the distance. Nothing stirs. The village remains asleep. But the night is no longer at its deepest point. It feels like the final stage of stillness before something new begins. Inside the child's home, the air feels slightly different again. Not in temperature. Not in light. But in presence. As if the world is holding itself in a longer pause, waiting quietly without urgency for the next moment to arrive. The child sleeps on. Their body relaxed. Their mind fully at rest. Time continues its slow, unseen movement forward. The river flows. The land remains still. The sky holds its fading darkness gently, no longer heavy, no longer deep in the same way, but open now in subtle ways that suggest what is coming is close, though not yet here. And so the village remains in silence. Soft. Complete. Resting in the final quiet breath of night, just before the first moment of morning begins to exist, still invisible, still far away, but already becoming part of the world's slow and patient return to light. The night is now at its most delicate edge. It has not disappeared, but it has changed its nature. What was once deep and enclosing now feels almost transparent in places, as if it is beginning to lift without ever being asked. The village is still asleep. Every home remains quiet. Every path remains empty. Every sound that belonged to the day feels far away now, softened by hours of silence and rest. Inside one of those homes, the child sleeps on. Their breathing continues in a slow, even rhythm. Nothing about their rest has changed. It remains deep, steady, uninterrupted. But around them, the world has shifted in a way that sleep does not notice. The darkness in the room is no longer complete. It carries a faint softness now, like the suggestion of space returning to itself. Outside, the Nile continues its movement. It does not respond to the change in sky or time. It simply flows, as it always has, carrying the night across its surface in gentle, unbroken motion. But the reflection it holds is beginning to transform. The stars are still there. Yet they feel less like fixed points and more like distant echoes, slowly retreating as something beyond the horizon begins to gather itself. A very soft breeze passes through the village again. It is almost imperceptible. It moves carefully, without sound, without disturbance. It touches the earth, the walls, the reeds by the river, and then fades again into stillness. Nothing wakes. Everything remains in rest. But the feeling of the night is no longer the same as before. It feels like it is holding its final breath. Inside the child's home, the air is quiet and still. There is no firelight now, only the memory of warmth that lingers in the materials of the room. The child turns slightly in sleep. A small, natural movement. Then stillness returns immediately. Time continues its slow passage. Without markings. Without interruption. The night is still present, but it is no longer fully in control of the sky. It has begun to loosen, gently and without resistance, making space for what is coming next. The river flows on. The land remains still. And above it all, the sky holds its final stretch of darkness with a softness that feels almost like waiting, patient, calm, and unhurried, just before the faintest beginning of morning finally starts to arrive, still unseen, but quietly near. The last veil of night grows thinner now. It is still present, still covering the village, still holding everything in a soft and familiar darkness. But it no longer feels deep. It feels stretched, as if it is gently giving way to something that has not yet fully arrived. Inside the homes, sleep continues. The child remains deeply at rest. Their breathing is steady, unchanged, moving in the same slow rhythm that has carried them through the entire night. There is no awareness of the world shifting around them, no sense of time approaching a turning point. Only sleep. Only stillness. Outside, the Nile moves on without pause. Its flow is unchanged, constant as ever, but the reflection on its surface is now subtly different. The sky above it is no longer completely dark in feeling, even if it still appears so. There is a faint suggestion of openness returning to it. The stars remain visible. But they feel quieter now. Less like sharp points of light, and more like distant impressions fading slowly into the background of the sky. A gentle wind passes once more through the village. It is soft. Cool. It moves through narrow paths, across still rooftops, and along the river's edge without disturbing anything. It does not linger. It simply passes through, as if carrying the final remnants of night with it. Nothing wakes. The village remains fully asleep. But the quality of the darkness has changed again. It is no longer deep and heavy. It is lightening in a way that cannot yet be seen clearly, only felt in the quiet openness of the air. Inside the child's home, the space feels slightly different. Not brighter. Not warmer. Just more open, as if the walls themselves are no longer holding the night as tightly as before. The child shifts slightly in sleep, then becomes still again. Time continues its slow, gentle movement forward. Without sound. Without urgency. The river flows steadily beneath the sky, carrying with it the final reflection of night as it begins to soften into something new. The land remains still. The village remains quiet. And above everything, the darkness begins its final, almost invisible release, holding on just long enough to complete its cycle, while already making space for the first breath of morning that has not yet arrived, but is now very close, waiting just beyond the edge of the world. The night no longer feels like night. It is still present, still covering the village, but it has grown thin now, so thin that it feels more like a memory of darkness than darkness itself. Everything is quiet. Not because the world is empty, but because it is fully at rest, holding itself gently in the final moments before morning. Inside the homes, sleep remains deep. The child continues to rest, their breathing slow and steady, perfectly even. There is no awareness of the long passage of time behind them, and no awareness of the change that is beginning above. Only sleep. Only calm. Only the soft continuity of rest that carries through the last hours of night. Outside, the Nile keeps moving. It has never stopped, not once through the darkness. Now, its surface reflects something new, not light yet, but the first faint suggestion that light is approaching. The sky above it is no longer fully dark. It holds a subtle, almost invisible softness, like the world is preparing to open its eyes. The stars are still there. But they feel distant now. Less like presence, more like memory. A gentle breeze moves through the village one last time before morning. It is cooler than before, but not cold. It passes through reeds, over earth, between still homes, and along the riverbank. It does not linger. It simply moves through, as if completing its final task before silence changes form. Nothing wakes. Yet everything is ready. Inside the child's home, the air feels different again. Not bright. Not warm. Just open. As if the space itself is no longer holding night in the same way. The child breathes in sleep. Then out. And somewhere beyond awareness, beyond thought, beyond rest itself, the world begins its quiet return. The darkness does not break. It softens. It loosens. It begins to lift without being pulled. The Nile continues its steady flow beneath this transformation, unchanged, eternal, carrying the reflection of a sky that is no longer fully night and not yet morning. The land remains still. The village remains silent. And then, very slowly, without sound or announcement, the first suggestion of morning arrives. Not as light yet, but as possibility. A gentle widening of the sky. A faint easing of the dark. A softness that spreads across everything without disturbing anything at all. The world does not wake suddenly. It simply turns. Quietly. Completely. Naturally. Inside the home, the child still sleeps. And above them, the new day begins, not with noise, not with movement, but with the calm and patient return of light that has always been waiting just beyond the edge of night.